Have you ever felt the disappointment of being treated badly even though you did everything in your power to treat people with dignity? And have you ever felt like you wanted to get away from it all, even if that meant you had to abandon your morality? And of course, have you ever wanted to have a bunch of cute girls running after you everywhere? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, you might see a bit of yourself in the protagonist of today's story. A narrator tells us about the sad fate of all heroes, saving the world at the cost of being ostracized and ultimately betrayed. One such hero led a virtuous life and saved many people, and at the end of his journey he made a wish for his next life. A handsome young man named Alan wakes up and immediately gets verbally abused by his brother, who says that their father is calling for him. He arrives at the head of the Westfell House's chamber after some more abuse and immediately gets notified that he's effectively exiled from his family. The reason for that is because of him not leveling up once in the 15 years he's been there and generally being very ordinary. Heck yeah, boys, we got levels in here. Now this is groundbreaking. Another thing that led to this is that at a ceremony that every child must go through, Alan was the only one who didn't get a gift from the gods. Sounds like someone I know who didn't like and subscribe yet. With some more cruel words thrown his way about what a failure he is, Alan is finally free to go, but he's happy to finally be out and about, ready to eke out a peaceful life he so badly wanted to experience in his previous life where nobody would be afraid of him again. As he heads to the border of Westfeld's territory, he sees some terrible situation happen in the distance. It seems that a female knight is protecting another noble girl from clay wolves. Alan recognizes the noble girl as Princess Lise of the kingdom of Adoa Stella, and remembers a time when they met at a party of the nobles, and she tried to protect him from the adults bad-mouthing him. As the lady knight is injured gravely, he uses the powers from his previous life and covers the distance between him and the two endangered girls in no time. The golems approach Lise holding her knight's body, but all she can think about is Alan. As if summoned, he appears to shield them from harm and uses his expertise to show off while destroying the wolves. Yes, we see the fit. Lise calls out to her faithful knight Beatrice, but the lady starts saying her parting words, feeling life slip away from her. Then Alan comes in to show off once again and completely heals Beatrice down to the armor, surprising everyone. As Alan lies that it's a blessing of his and changes the subject, asking the girls what they're doing here, Lise replies that she received a divine revelation and needs to get to Clume Village to prevent some kind of misfortune. Alan then helps them out once again by using his healing skill on their wagon that fell over, which somehow works, and together they proceed to the borderlands. Yeah, Lise got a wagon? What about it? While they're traveling, Alan asks them why they don't seem interested in using him in the kingdom's favor, and Lise answers that she puts her friend before the kingdom's needs, which fills Alan with gratitude. They arrive at Clume Village and find out that there are no monsters around. As the group investigates, they find villagers gathered around an athletic shorty who just got kicked out from one of the houses. Lise recognizes the girl as Akira, the person with the strongest gift said to give strength of 1,000 warriors called Braver. Just then, Akira's stomach makes a sound, so they treat her to some food while she explains her situation. As she traveled all over the place, she happened to save a little girl who was given to a dragon in the mountains as a sacrifice by the village, and then was kicked out by the village chief for trying to find out more about the situation. Alan does some supreme mental gymnastics and figures out that the villagers are not scared of the dragon, they just want to receive his protection from the surrounding monsters. When Akira finishes eating, she goes out to defeat the dragon and save the kid from whatever fate the villagers have in store for her, and Lise decides to tag along. Even if Alan only craves peace, he doesn't want to send them off alone to fight the dragon, so he joins them as well. When the group arrives at the foot of the mountain, they have a strategy meeting where Akira says she'll charge in through the front while the rest of them will go from the side to pincer the dragon. Alan wants to go on the front himself, but Akira puffs her cheeks and says she has a feeling that this guy would solo the dragon without a problem. As the side team climbs the mountain, they talk about how weird it is for Westfelds to not notice a dragon in their territory. Alan replies that they most likely do know about the guy and built the whole village to offer sacrifices to him, but before he can elaborate, Akira starts fighting the dragon and all heck breaks loose. She strikes with a lightning spell, but the dragon brushes it off and starts trash talking like he's the final boss or something. It's still episode 1 buddy. He points at the child he got back and says that he asked for sacrifices just to see faces filled with despair, to which Akira gets mad for real and does another cool lightning move, this time stronger. After she does a one-liner, she finds out that the dragon is actually just fine, so Alan himself has to save the damsel in distress, of course. Alan arrives just in time to cleanly cut off the dragon's wing. The villain is shocked, but still tries to drag innocence into the fight by landing right near the kid and Beatrice. As Alan prepares to strike, Lee shoots him a glance full of trust, and he strikes with his ultimate technique, Flash, without further hesitation. The dragon shatters into a million pieces, and so does Alan's sword from all the strain. Lee breathes a sigh of relief while helping him up, and Alan thinks that even if he wanted peace, it's alright to take a detour to help out people who believe in him. Alan wakes up to Lisa's pretty face and apologizes for sleeping in. Beatrice and Akira are already sparring energetically nearby, and then Lise begins to talk about what happened after defeating the dragon, namely, her having an overpowered healing power and reputation as a saintess and healing Akira's wounds completely. as Alan says that he'll treat her as he always did no matter what. They share a tender moment, broken up shortly after by the rest of the party calling out to them. Later on, Akira decides to leave the party to roam around by herself and, surprisingly enough, promises to take care of the girl. She also apologizes to Alan for shattering his sword and wonders if she can be called the hero if she relied on him, but he reassures her that at least for the little girl, Akira is the only hero here. Back at Westbell House, the head of the house is displeased because things didn't go according to plan and the dragon was supposed to defeat Akira. They are also the ones who made the clay monsters attack Lise, so these losers plan their next move, talking about an elf they're planning to dispose of. Back on the road, Lise tells Alan that there's a blacksmith elf they know who can solve the sword problem at a town out in the borderlands, so that's their next destination. In the night, they have to make a stop in the woods, and Beatrice mentions that Lise and Alan used to be betrothed, so there's no shame in getting cozy with each other. She totally ships them, and I agree. As Lise falls asleep on his shoulder, he remembers talking to her for the first time when they were children on a night with a similarly beautiful moon. Next day, they arrive in Granholm, and passing through the whole town, find themselves near a house in the woods where the blacksmith should live. Strangely enough, everything seems quiet, and Alan finds the door unlocked. They find the elf lady passed out from exhaustion, and after Lise heals her, Alan introduces himself. The elf named Noel immediately rejects his order on the basis of being too busy with other orders, but then analyzes his destroyed sword with her gift and changes her mind, surprised with how the sword looks completely devoid of life. As she throws everyone out of her house to focus on beginning her work, memories of another blacksmith lady named Vanessa occupy her mind. As Alan, Lise, and Beatrice leave to arrange for some lodging, a wild-looking girl and a man in a suit watch them from afar, intrigued both with the Saintess being here and the mysterious guy with them who's probably going to be a pain in their behinds from now on. As the three adventurers are resting in their room, Alan plans to go to the Adventurers Guild to sell the materials they got from the defeated dragon, while Lise says she and Beatrice are going to go sightseeing. At the guild, the receptionist goes crazy when seeing the dragon scales and runs towards the manager, but while that's happening, the wild girl and suited man approach Alan. The man introduces himself as Horace and says the girl is Mylene, an Amazoness, and they love adventure stories and would like to know how he defeated the dragon. They couldn't be more suspicious, and after a few questions, they disappear as soon as the receptionist comes back. In the back alley, the man laughs at Alan not being blessed by the gods, but Mylene's sharp instincts tell her to be wary of him. Sometime later, Alan and the others visit Noel and find her passed out on the floor again, having finished working on the sword. It looks a bit like a toothpick, but as long as it works, right? Noel wants to see it in action immediately, but Lise forces her to recover some more before going. After that, Noel and Alan go on alone to see how well it works, and Noel pours her heart out talking about Vanessa, the dwarf who took her in when she had nothing and no one who would care for her. The suspicious old man and tan girl duo appear again to exchange a few words with Alan, and Noel appears to almost recognize them. After that, Horace tells Mylene to shadow Alan so he wouldn't stumble upon something they try to keep secret. As Alan slays some monsters, Noel is keeping an eye on the condition of the sword, and it looks like he's using it flawlessly, so she wants to get him to fight stronger monsters. They go deeper into the forest, and what do you know? They find a giant beast. Noel's traumatic memories of Vanessa being obliterated by this monster send her into absolute panic. Young Noel was fed up with Vanessa working without paying any attention to anything else one night, so after causing some mischief and screaming at the dwarf woman, she fell asleep. When she wakes up, Vanessa finally finishes work on some exceptional sword. Back in the present, Noel asks Alan to destroy the monster, but he refuses because it's not doing any harm. The elf girl snatches the sword from his hand and rushes in, but Alan says that the beast, Fenrir, will nullify attacks below a certain level. Comment if you think that's just bad game design. Anyway, then he says that she's never made anything beyond the level of a sacred sword that could harm Fenrir and goes back, leaving Noel to ponder. He relays everything he saw to Lise and Beatrice and says there's a possibility someone brought it here for a reason, then asks what Lise and Beatrice were truly up to. Lise explains that some time ago, renowned General Cyril was permanently removed from the game of life, and the culprits made off with his head. Everyone does some mental gymnastics to draw the conclusion that a demon was involved and that someone in the kingdom has joined forces with demons, so Lise and Beatrice came here to look for some info from all sorts of folks passing through here. Then, Alan finally tells him about the strange pair he met twice before. Back at the spot where Fenrir was, Mylene wonders just what is Alan's power. When she goes to report that everything's alright to Horace, he decides that it's time for the young Amazoness to get rid of the Saintess Lise and the elf Noel. Mylene is surprised, but he approaches her and some kind of band appears around her throat, and the old man says he won't take no for an answer. With emptiness in her eyes, she agrees. Back at home, Noel is desperately working on the blade, remembering how she made Alan say how the sword could be improved. Just before she finishes the blade, she passes out and sees a memory of how Vanessa lost her life fighting Fenrir, all of it being part of the plan of a certain old man to not let weapons stronger than sacred blades exist. When Fenrir finished Vanessa off, he went for little Noel but was saved by Akira, who wounded the beast. The despair she felt at that moment was from the fact that all the hard work Vanessa put in to make her weapons amounted to nothing. Noel wakes up and her body feels very light, which is the work of Alan secretly watching over her. This time, she actually finishes the glorious sword, but instead of giving it to, Alan goes to the woods with it. She approaches Fenrir and he immediately bops her away, so much for that plan. Horace appears and starts being evil as usual. Then Noel tries to attack Fenrir again but is knocked away one more time. Before she's totally defeated, Horus makes a proposition to serve him. Her eyes are one of the legendary blessings called Graham's sight, so she could be useful to him. Then he also says that he started taking care of the Tan girl after they destroyed her home just to rub in how evil he really is. Of course, Noel refuses after hearing all that, and when he's about to make Fenrir clean up, Alan finally arrives to save the day. Horus then says that he shouldn't have left his post and Lise is in danger now. Meanwhile, Mylene enters Lise's bedroom in their arranged lodgings to get the job done, but Alan expected this, saying to Horus that he cast a spell to nullify invisibility in a certain range from Lise and that he's suffered through a lot of plots like that in his past life. There, Beatrice manages to knock Mylene out as she struggles to not kill Lise. Alan sees all this with magic and says they won't be needing any assistance, which the old man does not believe. Then Horus makes Fenrir attack once again, but Alan dispatches the big dog quite easily with Noel's sword. Horus, like the coward he is, runs away through a portal immediately. Everyone meets back up, and in the morning they finally get to talk to Mylene freely since she is no longer bound by Horus's subordination power. She says that she has nowhere to return to, which reminds Noel of her own struggles, prompting her to cut the rope binding Mylene. Noel promises to take care of the girl, and Lise is all for it. At another time, Alan tests the new sword's power again, and this time, the power wave reaches even Horus hiding out far away after making a tactical retreat. The dusty old man then gets approached by some kind of absolutely ripped Jim Bro Shadow Man, and when Alan gets there to interrogate Horus, all that remains of him is his tattered hat. Back at the Westbelt residence, the Shadow Man reports that Horus has been dealt with, and so they plan to leave the Sanus and the Elf to the demons, while the human side of the equation will deal with the hero and the Archbishop. Alan's brother offers to take care of the Archbishop personally. Lise recalls a traumatic moment in her childhood when her carriage got attacked by demons and her uncle had fallen into a river down below while trying to protect her. We go back to the present and see Alan, Lise, and Beatrice arrive at a new town just in time for the local festival, the Returning Spirits Festival. Lise asks if they saw somebody in silver armor around, but nobody did. We get back to the time when they were still at Noel's place where they look for another clue to go off of, and Noel herself says that there's a rumor of a ghost in a certain village wandering the graveyard who seems to be tied to the royal family. Beatrice tries to play it cool, but a sudden sound sends her into a panic, just like you when somebody messages you that they need to talk to you, but doesn't reply for 5 hours after that. As Noel and Mylene make fun of her, Lise decides that this is somehow relevant and that they should visit the place. Call it a hunch, call it a convenient plot point. Back to the present, they decide to go to the village cemetery since Noel mentioned it in her story, and while Beatrice soils herself at every sound, a weird man approaches them and leads them to the house of the village chief. The man seems hospitable enough and offers them to stay here for the night and see the festival the next day, but has no clue about the rumor. As Lise tries to sleep, she recalls some more memories tied to her uncle. He was like a father to her, and before departing on a campaign, he offered a comforting thought to her. Belief in another is also a connection that links people together. As she wakes up in the middle of the night, she feels something is amiss, and through a partway open window, she sees the man clad in silver armor, the same one they were looking for. She gives chase and arrives at the cemetery where a bunch of zombies attack. She screams and is woken up from this nightmare by a concerned Alan. Unable to bear it, she hugs him tightly, frightened out of her mind. The next day arrives and all the villagers dress up in ghost-shaped rags with odd masks on and dance around a big fire. As they observe the celebration, the weird man from earlier tries to get them to dance as well, but Lise refuses, letting others join in. Suddenly, a purple smoke engulfs the place, and she sees the man in silver armor in the crowd again. As she races after him, he finally shows his face, confirming what she feared. The man is her uncle. She believed he was alive somewhere even after he fell in the water, but when she asks him what he was doing, he replies that he resented the royal family and was in hiding to get revenge. He then explains that the king, her father, is trying to take the lives of people who possess unique gifts, like Lise herself, Akira, Noel, and so on. People with such great gifts have the power to overthrow the kingdom after all. The man says that he wants to save Lise, but upon hearing her say that she believes in a peaceful resolution, starts levitating in an evil way and makes an attempt on her life, saying her lifeless body won't go to waste. He changed his mind in record time. Alan, of course, appears out of nowhere and saves her, saying he heard the whole thing. Then, he dispels the controlling spell on the knight, and he regains consciousness one last time before being doomed to oblivion. Saying that it's not the king who's at fault, but demons, he asks Alan to take care of Lise. Then he raises his sword and asks to spar with him in order to see if Alan is worthy of being in her company. Lise's tears won't stop falling, and with them, a night rain falls upon the land. The knight, now lying on Lise's lap, reminisces. He tried not to show the joy on his face whenever she called him father, but it was the happiest he's ever felt. Holding the hand of the man about to pass away, Lise says that she loves him, and he hopes that she finds happiness. Later, Alan and the village chief meet alone, and our hero admits that he noticed the town was full of zombies from the start, and the chief was controlling them. As he yaps about the fact that not all demons are necessarily evil, the village chief takes the time to dispel that notion by summoning zombies to rattle Alan for good. You probably know what will happen right after, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Alan easily cuts the threads between the chief and zombies, then slashes all of them off the face of the earth. He catches a stone in his hand, eyeing it curiously. Back at Westfeld House, they're being evil losers again, but this time Alan's brother Brett at least succeeded in capturing the head of the Archbishop. Meanwhile, because of the stone being familiar, Alan figures out that Brett was behind beheading General Cyril and taking the head of Lisa's uncle. Just then, Lise receives communication that General Cyril, a man presumed passed away, has returned. Back when Brett and Alan's mother passed, Brett felt inadequate, servants talking behind his back and his own father considering him a failure. But at least now, he thinks, Alan's gone and he stands alone as a proud son of the family. With these thoughts, he starts another day. Even as his father looks like he's losing his mind over the evil actions they're taking, Brett forces himself to continue onward to prove his worth to everyone. The rumor of General Cyril returning spreads all over the place. Captain Edward and Clark of the Premier Knight Squadron talk between themselves whether the rumored man is a ghost or an imposter. If he's a threat to peace of the kingdom, he must be stopped. As they walk alone, a shadowy figure meets them, and as they stand on guard, the figure reveals himself to be the Archbishop. He requests a private conversation with Edward, and he complies. Edward is taken to the training grounds, and the Archbishop disappears, saying his role is done. Craig Westfeld, Brett and Alan's father, greets Edward by a hidden strike, promptly blocked. For a second, Edward lets his guard down while seeing his comrade in arms from a long time ago, but Craig's madness only pushes him to attack Edward further, screaming about not needing this world anymore after losing his one and only. Somewhere else, Brett reminisces about the past some more. Even though Alan tried to be there for him every time something bad happened, things changed when he was the first to level up. Suddenly, father looked at him with fondness, calling Alan a failure instead. Even then, Alan was not frustrated and didn't react in any negative way, always wishing the best for his brother, which frustrated Brett even more. Interrupting his thoughts, a caped figure appears in his carriage, saying everything is proceeding as it should. However, the figure is concerned about Captain Edward, whose gift is a nullification of all other gifts within the radius of 1 meter, or about 9 burgers for Americans. You're welcome. Brett, however, is sure that Craig will take care of him. Then another caped figure appears and says that the hero has appeared, so they have to take care of her now. True to their word, Akira is in town with the little girl she took in, and surely enough, she noticed being watched. They go into a quiet alley and Akira calls her pursuers, and so they appear. Then they reveal that everyone from the Dragon Village, including the little girl Sarah, has a sigil on their bodies that can turn them explosive. I didn't know they would take the lyrics. Baby, you're a firework, seriously, but here we are. As the little girl tries to push Akira to run away from her and survive, Akira stands her ground. As Vice Captain Clark and a few of his soldiers walk through town, another cloaked figure appears before them, saying that he will show them the truth of the world. Somewhere else, the Archbishop and General Cyril make a speech in front of numerous citizens, Brett manipulating them with his gift in the background. The two say aloud that gifts are not actually blessings from the gods, but ways for gods to control humans, and that the only way to become free from the lives imposed on them by their gifts is to give them up. Then, Brett takes the stage, showing off a monster that he controls, and revealing that his ability, which is not at all suspiciously named Marionette, can bring forth latent abilities which are unrelated to gifts and have always been within people. Then, to freak everyone out completely, he reveals that they entered into a partnership with demons, showing off the loser demon that never completed any of his missions successfully. Everyone's IQ collectively drops and they applaud and praise the whole speech even though they were horrified a few seconds ago. What do you think? Are you convinced? Meanwhile, Craig and Edward are still fighting, but Edward is losing. He realizes that it's because Craig's level is higher. This is what happens when you farm slimes in the starting area until you can defeat anyone. Vice Captain Clark is not doing well either. After he drew his sword against the figure in an attempt to be the kingdom's shield, a few of his soldiers are defeated and Clark himself is wounded. Fortunately, help comes from an unexpected presence. Beatrice enters the scene to aid the fellow knight. Edward is also aided by Akira, who escaped her own predicament due to Alan rewriting the sigil on Sarah a while ago. And of course, Brett, at the height of his popularity, receives an unpleasant surprise, that being Alan and a cloaked figure arriving at the scene. Beatrice asks one of the demons if they did all the evil things up to this point and wonders about their objective, and the demon decides to spill the beans completely for no reason. Luckily, Mylene is also here in stealth mode with a device that transmits the entire conversation to the crowd, so it's safe to say things are not going well for the villains. At a point when Brett just wants to crawl in some hole and stay there forever, Lise takes her cloak off. As she reveals that the attempt of taking her life was done by similar monsters as the one Brett just showed, the crowd is shell-shocked. Brett himself loses it completely, using his ability to control some soldiers to go on the attack, but Alan immediately breaks the link, freeing them. As the monsters brought over by Brett roar, everyone in the crowd finally starts running away in panic. Finally, Brett tries to attack Alan directly with his threads, but Alan catches them and knocks his brother out cold. While Lise comforts a crying child left behind, Alan approaches her and asks her to take care of everything else. She gets that he's going to confront the problem head-on, but she's also worried that it will be painful for him, and he is once again grateful for her caring nature. Meanwhile, Beatrice is in the middle of fighting a demon with the help of Mylene's invisibility spell. As the demon attempts to retreat, they strike a decisive blow, and his body disappears. However, they don't have time to chat around after this because demons struck other locations in the city as well. Before they head out, Noel appears with with a big assortment of weapons to give out, so the whole squad heads out armed to the teeth. In another place, Akira and Edward are fighting Craig hard, but Akira notices how weird it is that the man can predict their every movement. Edward confirms as such. Craig's gift is called Undertaker, and the gist of it is that he can see the future. Normally he wouldn't be able to use it in the heat of battle, but this time it's different. When Edward says that his long-lost love, Mauriel, would not have wanted to see him like this, Craig pours his soul out, saying that he could predict his lover's demise but could not change it, and that tore him apart. It turns out that her gift was the possibility of giving birth to a true hero, but Alan seemingly did not get a gift. The cruel joke that the gods played on him drove him insane. He burns his own life force out to finish the fight, and Akira retaliates with her own lightning, but their powers appear to be evenly matched. Edward guesses that his power has a demonic source and screams at him to not succumb to such forces lest he transforms into something else, but this time Craig attacks him directly. In that moment, by some miracle, Edward feels a fraction of the anguish that Craig felt all along, and the tears of understanding cause the desperate man to stop his attack. However, instead of any kind of reconciliation, Craig thrusts his sword into the good man's chest, ending his life. Akira tries to make him realize what he just did, but his evil gaze and murderous intent is already on her. You won't believe what happens next because it has never ever happened before, but of course Alan arrived out of nowhere and saved her. Crazy, I know. Upon seeing the person who induces the most despair in him than anyone else, Craig loses it even further, and a big burst of his power makes Alan go into the same mental space as Edward did not too long ago, feeling his father's bottomless despair. As he looks through his memories, he realizes that not getting too involved with his family has only brought more despair and sadness, but he can't surrender himself to these feelings now, so he retaliates with his own technique. Craig seemingly falls, but a final burst of dark power bursts out of him and through the roof of the building, covering the sky with darkness. It's time for Alan to once more go back into that mental space, this time to destroy the remains of his father, the pure anger and despair born from everything he had to endure. A beautiful butterfly lands on the man's disintegrating body, and the last words of his father are that he finally fulfilled his destiny. Later on, Alan is granted the title of Duke of Westfeld by the ruling monarch, but he refuses it. From hearing Lise talk about him a lot in the past, he seems to understand and accept that decision. Alan decides to live back at Granholm, but before he departs, Lise runs up and says that she's coming too. It turns out the responsibility for Westfeld now lies with her. Since Beatrice is still in the service to the royal family, she's trying everything she can to get back to Lise, but for now, it's just them. A mysterious, beautiful girl seems to have watched everything going down, and it turns out she's aware that he's a reincarnated great hero. Sometime later, Alan dreamed of a certain memory. After his previous life ended, the one who would grant his wish was crying, apologizing for making him go through all the difficulties in life, as well as thanking him for saving the lives of so many people. But when it's time to wake up, he's back to his new life. When he enters the dining room to greet Lise, Mylene and Noel also walk in, Noel being in only her underwear. Lise is embarrassed, but she becomes outright concerned when Noel says that Alan has seen her in an even more compromising state. During mealtime, he gets almost torn apart by everyone needing his help and time, so after that he's already exhausted. Later on, Alan announces his plans to travel to the Victor Empire bordering the kingdom, and maybe settle down there if he finds somewhere nice to live. Noel and Mylene decide to join the party without his consent, but Lise sadly says she has work to do for the duchy now, but she immediately changes her mind and charges off with him, leaving Beatrice to be saddled with Lisa's usual affairs. Some ruler she turned out to be! On the way, they get attacked by sandwolves, but Alan dispatches them easily, sensing another plot at work. When they get to a city next to the border, it's lively, but there's a lot of guards around, which keeps Alan on edge. However, he doesn't notice a girl walking by and they walk straight into each other. He and Lise both recognize her, Henriette, lady of Marquis Linkevist's family. The girl gives them a warning and advises them to leave. Something is brewing in the Empire, and the Black Wolf Knights, the most feared unit in the Empire, are on the move. She then makes a tactical retreat, but Alan chases after her, telling the girls to get some sightseeing in. Upon catching up to her, he asks to talk to the Disciple of the Gods, which is Henriette's real identity before she was reborn as a human herself. It looks like she still cares about him, hence the warning. As he leaves her to rejoin the others, an explosion rings out, and then he has to knock out a man running away from the explosion site with a knife. Suddenly, the knocked out man is enveloped in a dark aura and blood bursts out of him, and in a show of very unfortunate timing, a representative of local authority approaches, a fierce-looking night lady. She says that her gift is knowing if other people use their gifts, but she can't recognize if a demon has used their powers, so she presumes Alan to be a demon who set all this up. He doesn't wish to be taken in, so he just kind of disappears, and the flabbergasted night lady sends her subordinates to close off all the city exits. In the sewers, Alan thanks Mylene for coming in clutch, and then he meets up with the others and gets chewed out for getting in trouble immediately by Henriette, who is also there. While they're workshopping a solution to getting stuck here, they ask for Henriette's Henriette's help, and so off they go to her mansion in the area. A butler named Silas greets them, and Alan recognizes him as the head butler of House Westbelt back when he lived there. When they finally get comfortable in the mansion's living room, Henriette says that the uproar in the kingdom is because of the Emperor's assassination roughly a year ago. Everyone is surprised, and later the lady offers them to get comfortable while there's still a commotion outside. In the evening, Henriette and Alan talk one-on-one some more, and they both figure that what happened to the Emperor was the work of demons. After that, Alan asks if she's been watching him all this time, and that's why she helps them out, and even hired Silas when he left the Westbelt house, and she denies everything in the most tsundere way possible and storms off to sleep. In reality, she really was worried about him. So worried, she was reborn as a human just to watch over him from close by, and now she's really happy that Alan can smile, unlike in his previous life. After staying in the mansion for a while, Noel appears to lose her mind and gets cabin fever from not being able to see the fabled dwarven workshops she heard of. After thinking on it for a bit, Alan says that it's probably safe for Noel to go out since it's only Alan they're looking for, so she happily does just that with bodyguard Mylene in tow. When the local elves look at her strangely, she thinks it's because she's just too pretty, but when a few of them approach to ask something, Mylene takes her away, taking her bodyguard role a bit too seriously. When they arrive back and tell others what happened, Henriette tells everyone to follow her, and somehow drops them into another dimension where the elven forest lies hidden. Noel feels like she belongs here, and as they walk around, they are approached by a bunch of elves. They call Noel their sovereign, which confuses everyone except Alan and Henriette, who figured Noel's gift is a sign that she is of the elven royal blood. As they arrive at the elven settlement, a few children approach Noel, one of them named Philip. He wants to talk to Noel, but their elven regent Percival says no. That prompts the kid to get mad and say the other kids who did talk to Noel were bad, but the regent cuts him off to proceed with the tour of the settlement. Somewhere else, the Empire's knights Lizette and Oswald scout out town surroundings in the night, and they start talking about looking for the entrance to the elven forest. They get into an argument, and Oswald says that Lizette committed the worst taboo in the Empire's history. Back at the forest, the elves are having a party. Percival talks to Alan saying that without the sovereign, other elves cannot grow or bear children, so Noel appearing inspired hope in everyone. He also says that Henriette helped them find out about other cultures by bringing things that humans make and use, and has generally been very kind to them. Alan recognizes that those that Philip called bad children were actually demon children, and the regent says that they were brought over by Henriette too. She asks the elves to take care of them since the kids had nobody else, and everyone was opposed to it at first, but they are learning to live side by side now. Later on, they get to elven accommodations, and Noel seems to be absolutely exhausted by all this. Mylene asks if she's going to become the sovereign, but she's undecided yet, and Alan advises everyone to go rest up for today. After everyone goes to sleep, Noel keeps thinking about all this and realizes she does not have a goal to work towards right now. Ever since she made the sword that surpassed other sacred swords, why has she been traveling with Alan and the others? Alan wants to talk to Henriette at night, and she misunderstands that as him wanting to make sweet love with her, but then he completely rejects that notion and starts talking about the demon children. Turns out there's a lot more to know about demons, like the fact that it's not a race, but people who completely embrace hatred and darkness in their hearts. Demon children, however, are innocent souls whose only sin is being born from demon adults, but they still get ostracized for that. She rescued the demon children in the village as they were about to perish too. Next day, the squad is exploring more of the forest with Percival guiding them, and as they walk towards an enchanting lake, Henriette notices Noel being lost in thoughts. Then she says that she should choose whatever she wants, and the elves here are trying to live a life without a sovereign too. Just then, the two demon children approach Noel with a treasure they want to give her, a sparkly stone. Henriette explains that this is a spirit stone, a crystallization of elven power. Philip runs towards them and throws the stone away. You'd think that the next thing he'll say is to build a wall to keep them out with how much he dislikes the demon children. He runs away, and Henriette chases after him, finally finding him back in a narrow alley in the normal dimension. They talk, and she explains to him that they're not so different, and they want to be friends with Noel, the same as every elf in the forest does. She leaves him to think about that, but when he gets up to get back, his path is blocked by none other than Oswald, the evil-looking guy from earlier. He takes the child hostage to get him to show the way into the forest. As the party enjoys the elves' hospitality and great food, Noel is still confused on what she should do, but more so about the fact that they don't have meat over there. Later on, Henriette leaves the forest to look for Philip, and everyone gets a bit worried. While she's off, Percival talks about the lives that elves lead and that everything is given to them by the forest because they are part of it. Alan confirms as much with magic. Elves are one with the forest. He thinks about moving here since it's a nice place, but Percival says that to be here, you have to be accepted by the forest itself. Apparently, staying here temporarily like the demon children are is just fine though. As they talk about that, Percival communicates with the forest and says someone new has entered it. He goes out to welcome them while the party just lounges about. Lise asks Alan if he really wants to stay, then goes mad when he says that if something's not right, Henriette will help him out. He does not make it easier by explaining the relationship between them as being bound by fate, and Noel and Mylene chuckle at their lover's spat. Then Noel says that she will keep a close eye on Alan since she intends to stay here while she figures out whether to stay or not, and Mylene says she'll stay too, but Lise is upset because she has duties and obligations of her own. When Henriette gets back to the mansion, she gets visited by Lisette of the Black Wolf Knights, the fierce lady we saw earlier. She wastes no time getting to the point while her subordinates wreck the mansion trying to find any traces of Alan. The fact is, she knows that he's in the elven forest. Meanwhile, Oswald has already entered the forest. When Percival greets the new guest, he immediately demands to see Alan, but most unfortunately the two demon kids run up to the men, and of course Oswald is thrilled about it in the worst way possible. As he uses magic to conjure an explosion, Noel feels a disturbance through the children's spirit stone gifts and runs towards the site of the conflict. For some reason, even though Alan did not consider the demon children evil at all, he stops to think about whether he should stop the Black Wolf Knight from getting rid of the children in cold blood. Seriously, dude? You've been virtuous this whole time, but harming innocent kids with horns is a complicated, multifaceted matter that you can choose to ignore? Lise snaps him out of his thoughts and they rush to join Noel and Mylene. Back at the forest entrance, Percival seems to have protected the kids with a magical shield, but he gets swiftly overpowered by Oswald. The evil man is about to approach the children when Philip runs in and stands between them, trying to shield them with his small body. Oswald has no gripes about putting one more child down, but he gets hit with a hammer thrown by Noel. Both Noel and Mylene cannot hold a candle to Oswald, so they run around screaming, but in that moment, Percival takes the chance to attack the knight from behind. Unfortunately, he fails and gets beat up some more, but Alan arrives on the scene again to save the day. He uses his special eyesight to see the energy fuse that is part of Oswald's gift and completely nullifies his usefulness, then asks why he went for the children. When Oswald says he needs no reason to dispatch demons, Alan strikes the final blow on the man. Unfortunately, the man is merely unconscious, and while the squad ponders on how to proceed, Henriette teleports behind them. She tells the good news about blockades finally being lifted. Noel decides to leave the forest after all because there are so many things she still doesn't know, and so does the rest of the squad. What they don't know is that to lift the blockades, she gave herself into the Black Wolf Knights as a suspect for the Emperor assassination case. As the party prepares to leave town, Lise is sad that they didn't get to see Henriette off since they were in such a hurry to go. Just then, a red-headed boy runs up to them asking to save his sister. He ends up being Henriette's brother Curtis, and they finally find out from him that she's detained by the Black Wolf Knights unit. The poor guy doesn't have anyone else to turn to, since due to her being eccentric, she's shunned by other families of importance. When the squad takes the time to discuss the matter at hand away from Curtis, they realize they've never heard of her having a brother. Something's not right, but they decide to involve themselves nevertheless. In the knight's carriage, Henriette is upset about both her legs and arms being shackled, and Lisette apologizes and says it's just protocol. She also says that she kept her word and lifted the blockade, and Henriette suddenly gets serious, saying that if it's a lie, she will end Lisette's life. When Alan and the others meet Curtis again, he's with a weird knight who doesn't show his face, saying that he's a trustworthy guard. They decide to ride to the capital in the brothers' flamboyant-looking carriage, remaining wary all the while. Alan just straight up asks the lad if he's really related to Henriette, and the nervous Curtis finally answers that he's her cousin from a lesser family branch. Ever since they were children, she's always been the only one who treated him, a boy with no talents normally, but they didn't let him see her much. Now, he laments that all he could do was watch while they were taking her away, but Lise comforts him, saying he had the courage to ask them for help and tell the whole truth. After that, he asks what the relationship between Alan and Henriette is exactly, and the other girls start hounding him again. At night, the knight's carriage is finally stopped to rest, and Henriette is not even surprised that Lisette is not taking eyes off of her like she was told to. She then asks what happened to the man who rampaged in the elven forest, and the night lady answers that he was pardoned since they found the suspect in the end after all. While they talk about Henriette making so many enemies that a situation like this was inevitable sooner or later, the noble lady is fine with this outcome, as long as Alan is safe and sound. How clueless! Just outside the capital, Alan and the others encounter another obstacle. The city has been locked down. Alan offers to ask around at the Adventurers Guild, and Curtis agrees, but says that Noel and Mylene should stay behind since their races are rare in the Empire, so they would stand out. As Alan and Lise go towards the guild, Lise seems really happy, and when the man asks why, she answers that it's the first time in a while that they've been alone. They enter the guild, and the mood there is tense. Curtis gets the key for the lodgings at a local hotel, saying that they would never sell out their guests, so the two girls are safe here. Mylene asks the armored knight if they've met somewhere before, and the knight shakes their head erratically, so they drop the subject to not be rude. At the guild, there's no leads on how to get to the capital, but Lise eavesdrops and hears that the Black Wolf Knights are looking for a party of 6, most likely meaning them. As they prepare to leave, one of the knights comes in and asks if anyone has any info on the whereabouts of the aforementioned party. They plop a bag of gold coins on the table, and the adventurers happily rat out Alan and Lise sniffing away for more info. When the knight turns to where they were, they already ran out of the guild, so the knight gives chase. They're fast, but they lose the duo when they bump into a kid and stop to check on him. As Alan and Lise think on what to do now, an explosion rings out in the direction of the inn. When they arrive, the inn is in shambles, and Oswald stands there, firmly holding on to Noel and Mylene. Then, Curtis is lying face down, body buried halfway under the rubble. He wakes up and apologizes to Lise, still dazed from the explosion. But when she tries to run up to him and help him, Oswald stops her, saying this is between him and Alan. Our boy gets serious and traverses the distance between them in a moment, landing a slash, but then Oswald says that he already has fuses attached to all the nearby people, so even if he can't beat Alan, he can activate all of them. Alan remembers a scene from a past life where he saved a child from a demon, but the child threw a rock at him and called him a monster instead. Seemingly, that made him resolve to finally stop walking the path of a hero and care less about saving other people. But in the end, he manages to break all the fuses in record time before any of them have a chance to explode. Before he lands the final blow on Oswald, a female knight stops him, saying it's the duty of their own knight unit to punish the man who brought such destruction to the Empire. That knight is the vice captain of the Black Wolves, Celia Bartolas. Her assuming responsibility for what happens to him manages to make Alan sheath his sword. Later on, when the others' wounds are healed and they're resting, Alan and Lise talk about how weird it is that they would pull out so easily and lift the lockdown if they were looking for Alan's party. Somewhere else, Celia and Lisette talk about recent happenings. When Celia asks why the lockdown was lifted, Lisette just says that this is the idea of the top brass, and when she asks for permission to punish Oswald, she says that the leader of the knights will do that personally. Then, a murky shadow grabs Oswald sitting down nearby and consumes him. To Celia's horror, Lisette puts Henriette to rest in one of the dreary rooms of the palace instead of the prison cell. Bored out of her mind, the girl asks for some books to pass the time. Back at a checkpoint into the capital, the party is thinking of how to get past the security checkpoint when Curtis realizes something. There are catacombs underneath the capital which they could use. Alan, Noel, Mylene, and Lise enter the catacombs via a hidden passage in the wall, and even there they have to deal with patrols by the knights. Mylene manages to pull through and make them all invisible, so she might be eligible for the title of best girl in the whole story. But Lisette is one step ahead of them, politely asking them to go visible with an arrow to the face. Alan catches it easily and lets the girls pass him by because the knight's business is only with him. Unexpectedly, she asks for a duel, but when they begin, Alan is astonished by Lisette's outrageous speed. The girls who went ahead meet Curtis, who went with the checkpoint route, and they tell him what has transpired down there. The fight continues, and Alan wonders out loud why she didn't take his head yet when she had any number of chances to, but when she has another opportunity to do that during the duel, the moment with Henriette's threat flashes before her eyes, stopping her. Suddenly, the ground shakes and rubble starts falling on both of their heads. Back at the meeting point, Curtis smiles, seeing an explosion in the distance, but when tears well up in Lisa's eyes, Alan's voice calls from behind them, and they see him standing there dusty but unharmed. Noel and Mylene make comments about them to get a room, but Alan asks Curtis why he looks like he saw a ghost, to which he awkwardly stutters that he's glad Alan's alright. Then, this not at all obviously shady man sends everyone to get some rest for the day. Alan has other plans though, as he heads out for a quick errand. Suddenly, he casually appears in Henriette's room. When he explains he's here to save her, she says that they probably wouldn't have done anything to her that's more grave than stripping her of her rank and exiling her. When he says he was worried for her, her expression changes and she tells him to go back home and that she'll be alright. Although he's confused, he complies, saying he'll see her later. When he goes away, she sighs. In the morning, Curtis is worried that if they save Henriette, the Emperor's assassination will be pinned on the kingdom, so he doesn't want to involve them any further, telling them to leave. Without much thought, Alan agrees. Sometime later, Henriette is transferred to a prison cell, and there she meets Curtis, this time with a full-on slasher smile. Henriette starts off by asking who's he working for, but Curtis claims that the whole thing is his idea. When she doesn't believe him, he summons a dark orb, claiming the power changed him. She recognizes it as the power to control the Black Wolf Knights and assumes that he got rid of them all to get this power, but he says that all he did was threaten them. His real goal is to become emperor, and for that he needs Henriette to marry into her house and gain legitimacy. As he does an evil smile again, she screams into his face that this is the stupidest idea she's ever heard, and she didn't expect him to have such a banal dream. He is confused, but is letting her think it over. As he walks out of the cell, he sees Lisette. She apologizes for not being able to defeat Alan, and he says it doesn't matter anymore since he's out of the country for good now. The atmosphere in the party's carriage is somber, but Noel finally breaks the silence, worried about Henriette. Alan straight up says that he visited her before leaving and she assured him she'll be fine, and Lise thinks that this is probably for the best too. Henriette gets a visitor, namely Lisette. She brings the noble girl a book and leaves. The book is about heroes, and it stirs up memories of her existence before this life, where everyone else thought she was weird for reading such books even back then. Even though both in stories and her experience heroes were envoys of justice who defended the weak, it always bothered that all heroes had untimely deaths, and no matter how much she tried to avoid that with Alan in his past life, she failed. Then, she says to herself that this time she will go ahead of Alan. Some time passes and Curtis comes by again to ask about his offer, but all he gets is a firm refusal and an order to hurry up with the execution. He tries to threaten to send an assassin for Alan, but of course that would be fruitless, and when he says he'll burn down the elven forest, Lisette says she'll bite her own tongue and pass before that comes to pass. Now that he's completely and utterly flabbergasted, he straight up beats her up then runs away. If you're asking yourself what's going on anymore, don't worry, you're not alone. The goofball then runs into his room and panics, but then a black mist appears around him and he seems to get some new ideas. Our party stops at the city to get some more supplies to get to the kingdom comfortably. And when Noel and Mylene are off on their errands, Lise wants to talk to Alan about Henriette. She's still worried and wants to come back, even if it's for her own selfish desire. Something about that touches Alan, and the armor knight who is still traveling with them seems to agree. Back in Henriette's cell, Curtis is back, but this time there is an indescribable emptiness in him. Henriette refuses his offer again, but this time he pushes himself onto her. Then a black shadow appears around him. Shadow hands grab the noble lady by the throat, and Curtis hopes to make her his, even if it's just in the afterlife. But wait, you will never ever guess what happens. This is unprecedented, but Alan is here to save her. Crazy! Comment if you expected this to happen or not. And the armored knight is there with him. When the knight throws their helmet away, it's actually Celia who says she serves the Empire, not a sleazeball like him. After saying that he's keeping people waiting, Alan raises his sword. The past flashes by. A tall man with an air of superiority asking Curtis what his wish is. When Henriette's name comes up, the man produces the Emperor's head out of thin air, telling the young man that there is a possibility to overturn everything and make him the new emperor. Black smoke surrounds Curtis, instilling madness into him, and he runs up to the man with a dagger and stabs without stopping. The man laughs and dissipates into smoke, flowing into Curtis. Back to the present, Curtis with red glowing eyes spouts some stuff about Alan being helpless before his power, shadow tentacles sprouting out of him. Alan affirms, however, that the power isn't his, and Curtis throws out a temper tantrum, destroying everything around him. Of course, Alan overpowers him easily, but there is one last thing on his mind. He figures out that the reason Curtis wants to be emperor is to get Henriette, which the boy denies and then says that he's hurting the people closest to him to get his way. This sends him into a breakdown, and ever the eccentric Henriette approaches him to calm him down. Just then the shadow tentacles act up again and he grabs her, his face contorting into something animalistic. Alan tries to talk him down, but it has no effect, and then Lizette appears and cuts off all the tentacles. She says she's aware he'll lose, so she's just here to get a hit in. Then she takes Henriette to a safer spot away from him. This is what Alan's been waiting for, and when the man's monstrous, ever-changing form is fully clothed in dark, he finally uses his ultimate skill, Flash. Somehow, he gets into Curtis's mental space. There, they have a conversation, where one young man wants the power the other possesses, and the other wants to get away from all the pain that power gave him. With that, the dark dissipates. Henriette approaches, awkwardly thanking him, and then immediately reproaching him for coming back. Henriette narrates that the truth has been hidden from the people, and she faked her own execution to finally chill out with the rest of the crew. On a picnic get-together, Alan admits to Henriette that he did quit being a hero, but he saved her because he wanted to, even if she didn't. Yet, she concludes that in the end, he really was everyone's hero. So, that's the end. Did you like this? Is there anything particularly interesting you found in all this, or are you here for fun? Comment down below and tell us if you have any other anime suggestions.